Peace, peace, peace. Welcome to another episode of Why the Dome TV. Today I have a very special guest. Man, this one is definitely going to be dope. Uh, Goes by the name of Philly's Black Marxist, and we got some real stuff to get into. So again, man, I appreciate you for coming through. I've been wanting to make this one happen for a minute. We're getting it done now, so definitely, again, I appreciate you.
For sure, man. I'm always looking to link up with the people and talk about some real shit.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So again, I got to start with your Marvel origin story. You know what I'm saying? What kind of led you to being radicalized, and what your pathway to Marxism? If you can share those experiences with us.
Yeah, man. I mean, like a lot of things, like it's shit just happens incrementally, right?
Hmm.
I'm from North Nevada Street, love of Cumberland, and over time, like I grew up, I was into like science. You feel me? I was a big building out of science guy kid.
Yeah.
Feel me? Like
Yeah.
always been into literature, and all that. So growing up, I had a lot of questions. I always wanted to know why things were. I was always told I grew up in guardianship, and my mom would always tell me like, yeah, like as a kid, I'm 5'11", like 300 now, but like as a kid, my first growth spurt took me to like 5'5". You feel
Mm,
me? Like I was
mhm,
a young boy. So like she would always tell me like, you're gonna have to be careful out here. Make sure you always got a smile on your face because these people, they out here for you. And that always like made me start thinking like, who?
yeah.
Why? You
Yeah.
feel me? And as time kind of went on, you find yourself in these situations where, you try to grow your idea of like your understanding of what's going on. I was in uh CEP,
Mm,
the Community Education Partners. I was there for 6 years. Crazy. But
mhm,
um I was there for 6 years, and while I was there, like I always had questions about like why that school even needed to exist. CP is a
mm,
behavior school.
yeah.
And the way that the system works, you're supposed to be out of there 180 days, you out. I was
Right.
there for 6 years, and I was
Damn.
technically a good kid. You feel me?
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
um, I think like the radicalizing moment for me, amongst a lot of things, uh, was seeing internally how the system works. You feel me?
Mm,
I after high school, I struggled with like some homelessness and stuff like that, and I was always around street shit. So like I saw corrupt cops and how money move in the streets and all that. And once I got into politics and into nonprofit administration, you start seeing that like there's people who have power, right? There's people who have power
mhm,
who can resolve a lot of the issues that we have going on, and conversations come up, and the right questions are being asked, but the answers aren't coming out the way that you need them to, right?
mhm.
Or I don't want to say too many incriminating things, but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. I
like
got you. Mhm,
you see how you start seeing how like politics works, party where partisanship isn't necessarily as strong as we're being told it is. Like
yeah.
there's a lot of Democrats and Republicans shaking hands behind the closed doors,
Mhm,
right?
mhm,
So seeing all that play out, hearing people talk about how they got to profit off of food insecurity in North Philly, people
mhm,
running for office at the time, just made me think about where I go from there because obviously the solutions weren't inside of those systems.
yeah.
Um, and I've always been analytical, research minded, and I was into philosophy, and I started coming across people like Nietzsche and Kant and all those people, and I came across Hegel
Mhm,
and
mhm.
read a bit of his stuff, and people were telling me like, "Oh, you read Hegel, you must be a Marxist." And I'm like, "No, not really, but like whatever." And I
Yeah.
kept hearing that term. I didn't even
Yeah.
know what it was at the time. I just kept hearing the term, and then
Mhm,
I remember again, like these things happen in increments. I was working at Mighty Writers for a while in West Philly, in Mantua, and having a conversation with the kids, and like somebody joked, one of the teachers was joked and was like, "Yeah, Tyreek's a socialist," and there was a volunteer who was there who was like, yeah, yeah, socialist, but not a communist. And I was like, that was like odd for you to say.
Yeah.
Like that was like, like that was like wild for you to like jump to that. Like and I had to think about it. Like, am I a communist? Why am I not a communist? And then I
Mhm.
started digging into communism, and that shit, dialectical materialism and historical materialism, opened my eyes to like a whole different world. And not because it was confirmation or because it was something new, but because it wasn't. For me,
Mhm. Mhm.
it was like I was reading through Marx's work, reading through Capital, reading through the manifesto, and it was like, damn, this is shit. Me and my brother serving life in prison, right? Me and my brother used to talk about this shit all the time. The systems at play, why people are restricted from having access to the things that they need, because a lot of the things that we see play out in the grand scheme play out on the streets.
Yeah.
So stuff just started adding up, and from
Mm.
there, the rest is history.
Yeah. No, no. You said today, and just kind of piggybacking off of what you said just a few minutes ago, that uh, party politics is dead. It's the people versus the state, and it's
Yeah,
always been. If you can elaborate on that, because I mean, I agree 100%. We see these politicians go at each other on these major news channels, but then we'll see at different events where they're kikiing together and having a good old time with each other. And it's so funny because it's like a month ago you just said this nigga was the next coming of Hitler, right?
exactly.
And now y'all kicking it because if you think if you believe the things that you said about this person
Mhm.
and the evil that they are willing and are striving to do, there is no yeah ever since the whole January 6th thing, they've been making a big deal about the idea of peaceful transfers and all of that kind of power. But whenever you're dealing with the tyrant that you say that you're dealing with, um, you would think you would approach that situation a
They'd be
little bit
resistant.
differently. Yeah, right.
They'd be resistant. And that's I think that's what, like I said, a lot of this stuff goes back to my experience, like what radicalized me and the things that I've seen since.
Mhm.
Things just start just add up. Like this isn't new. You feel me?
Yeah.
Like, I've seen members of Philly GOP be absolute tyrants to black and brown people in the communities that they serve, or not even like actual people in office, but like people adjacent to them be tyrants, and then see those same people at Democrat events, right?
Mhm.
So with Trump coming into office and all of the rhetoric that we've been hearing for the past 4 years about Trump, for the past 8 years about Trump, even longer. Honestly, like I've been hating Trump since I was in middle school. You
Yeah.
feel me? But like
Yeah.
you see all of this and you have to wonder like is where's the line, right? Where's the line that they're trying to establish and what is the point of the rhetoric?
Mhm.
Because for the average voter, everything is targeted, everything's commodified. The average voter consumes nothing of right wing media, right?
Right.
The average liberal voter consumes nothing of right. So we're sitting at home, me for years. All I'm seeing is Obama commercials. All I'm
Mhm.
seeing is all
Mhm.
I'm seeing is how reform can make America great, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then those same people get in front of the microphone or get in front of cameras in the same moment
Mhm.
and they're friends.
Yeah.
They're friends. I got told that Mitch McConnell was the Antichrist,
Right.
and Joe Manchin, he's a dino, and he's holding the Democratic Party back. And then I see people voting on the same lines as him, and
Mhm.
it makes no sense. But like to go back to your question, like what it means that party politics is dead. Honestly, I believe that we're in the epoch of rising class consciousness, right?
Mhm.
Where people are starting to see the contradictions more than they ever have. And that's not exclusive to communists, right? That's not exclusive to Marxists or really anybody on the left. People are seeing the contradictions and they're finding solutions. So that's where those reactionaries come from. That's where a lot of Trump supporters come from, right?
Right.
They're saying like, "Yo, I don't have food. I don't have, you know, well-paying job. My business is struggling. My family can't eat." Okay, there has to be something going on, and then you get the Trumps of the world that come through and say, "Yeah, this is what's going on. It's the immigrants. It's the blacks. It's the
Yeah.
whatever."
Yeah.
But people are seeing it, and not only that, but people are starting to rise above the rhetoric itself. People are seeing that like actually it isn't these marginalized groups, even if it's a slow process. Drops in the
Hmm.
bucket, fill it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and we're having these moments, right? I think that people get caught up in wanting everything to be like flash and sizzle. Everything has to be
Yeah.
like, we're in a real instant gratification society. We watch 30-second TikToks.
Right.
So so like people want these events to be like Luigi kills the CEO, revolution the next day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or
Yeah. Yeah.
or
Yeah.
like or like TikTok banned, niggas mad, everybody become Chinese communists.
Right.
Like
Right. Right.
that's not how these processes work. You know,
Hmm.
the revolution in Russia took 20 years, three different revolutions.
Hmm.
Um, but as time goes on, we keep having these small events. You get your Trumps, you get your Obamas, you get your Bernies, where like people keep seeing glimpses of what they want and then seeing it snatched away from
Yeah. Right.
them. And seeing why it's getting snatched away, why they can't have affordable healthcare or healthcare period, because it shouldn't just be affordable, it should be
Right. Should
healthcare
be.
period,
Hmm.
or like why they can't afford rent. We saw during the pandemic that the government is fully capable of putting rent on freeze, and
Hmm.
landlords didn't die.
Right. Right. Right.
Right?
Right.
Like the government is fully capable of making sure that like everybody has a baseline income so that
Hmm.
they can go out and live, mobilizing the different agencies that we have to make sure that people are protected. And then they take that away with no real argument for why other than because it was too costly, right?
Yeah.
So right now in this moment, like I see people growing towards at least the understanding that the ruling class
Mm.
doesn't have our best interests at hearts, and that's the start. That's the start of it all.
Yeah. I've even seen people who are MAGA start to have like buyer's remorse because
Mhm.
some of the working class shit that Trump promised them, like he's already contradicting
Mhm.
now, right? Um, uh, you know, when it comes to like holdovers from like McCarthyism and just how people view communism, socialism, and Marxism, or in Marxism here, just even the terms itself and the type of emotion you can see and
Yeah.
reaction
Yeah.
it brings out in some people, whether they're black, white, or whatever. Because we even have some African people in America who may see because we have these conversations offline, and you've been doing this for a while, and some Africans may see uh, Marxism as being as the capitalist critique and Marxism being on point, but it's still being a quote unquote European philosophy, right? We've or on the other side, we've seen we've seen how they will throw all the evil shit that results from capitalism and say that's Marxism, right? Or
Yeah.
say that's communism. But either way, like for those who may not understand, and like you said, this thing is kind of happens in increments. We study, we meet people, different books inspire us, different lectures, speeches inspire us, and we get to where we are in the present. But for those who may not understand, why you're a Marxist and why a critique of capitalism and imperialism is necessary for African people. Could you explain that? Because all of our lives here in America, we've been taught about racism, white hegemony. We have been taught about individual racism that Kwame Ture talked about in Black Power, and we've also learned about things that happen systemically. But it's never, at least in my lifetime, it's never been accompanied with a critique of capitalism and the ability to paint the picture of Western imperialism and how it not only affects us here in America, but black and brown people all over the world. And just saying that to say this, like, why is Marxism important for the critique of capitalism and imperialism and as an African in America?
Yeah, so I think to start that to answer that question, I think Walter Rodney kind of hit the nail on the head,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
With some of the questions that he levied to people who had that critique, right? That there isn't anything that makes Africans, Black people, any different on a material basis or on a scientific basis than the rest of the community, right? The rest of
Mm-hmm.
the global community. Our entire existence in America was brought on as a relationship to capital.
Mm-hmm.
We were capital when we were brought here. We
Mm-hmm.
were means of production when we were brought into this country, right?
Mm-hmm.
Slavery was white people owning the means of production.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where any critique or any explanation of why this is important has to start on a bigger scale. Capitalism, imperialism, capitalism has grown outside of its national borders, right? Like this isn't the 16, 1700s where we're talking about plantation farmers, with a couple of acres and they got, Native Americans to the west of them and ocean to the east, right? Where we're talking about global corporations who have assets in Indonesia, Beijing, they have assets in Iraq, you know. So there has to be a reason why, right? When we were brought here through an imperialist action, right? The Dutch East Indian Company, the different British and Spain and different royal families, like they went into Africa with the specific reason for capturing resources that they need for commodity production back at home.
Mm-hmm.
They needed to make sure that to a certain extent that there was commodities being produced for cheap, as cheap as possible for the consumption of workers in Europe so that those workers in Europe didn't revolt, right? Because workers
Right.
in Europe were already tense because the situation there was bad, right? So that's the core part, right? Black liberation has to come with the fall of capitalism because we are still our relationship to capitalism is still as a labor force, not necessarily as any idealist version of like where here in America is lifting us up, capitalism is lifting up. There's none of that going on, right?
Yeah, yeah.
um, and Marx's work was a framework for critique of the system itself, right? So I think that a lot of people who hear us talk about Marxism and why it's important, they get turned off one because of McCarthyism, which is the obvious reason, but also because there's the European connection, as well as there's this belief that Marxism is something that is specifically built for Germans, right? When even Marx himself said, while his theories on how to move forward are for the Germans, his critique of capitalism is a critique of capitalism. And
Right.
capitalism, wherever it exists, production, modes of production, wherever they exist, right? Us here in America, we are fighting against capitalist corporations, a capitalist state that is not only using our labor to undermine ourselves, to undermine our own liberty, but also use the labor of people abroad to undermine our ability to rise up against them.
Yeah.
We can't feed our families because they're using slave labor in the Congo.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
So if black people in America want to be able to fight, because it does seem like without a global international imperialist critique, it feels impossible because
Yeah.
you're talking about one man, a group of people, your neighborhood, your community, you know, fighting against the world's largest military, the world's richest country, you
Mhm.
know. But at the same time, when you look at it on a global scale, it's not just you, it's not just your community, it's you plus everybody in Burkina Faso,
Yeah. Yeah.
you plus everybody in the Congo, it's you plus everybody in Palestine, right? So as capital and imperialism loses those fights, are weakened on those fronts, we have more of a capability to enforce our demands here. And if we can enforce our demands here, that weakens them on the other front. It's a two-pronged attack. We're attacking on both fronts. It's funny because like a lot of niggas read 48 Laws of Power and Art of War, and then like you bring to them a Marxist critique, and they're like, "Oh, that doesn't make sense to me." And it's like,
Mhm.
hey, did you read Sun Tzu? Did you listen to
Yeah.
him? Because this
Yeah.
is what he said. You got to
Right.
attack him on both fronts.
Right.
So imperialism, having a Marxist critique of imperialism, in my eyes, is the only path to liberation. Because if you isolate and alienate yourself from the rest of the working class on a global scale, you just make yourself easier to attack.
Yeah. And you know me, I'm not going to give him too much light, but I have certain issues with nativist groups that I have a
Yeah,
lot of back and forth with. And one question that I hear that a lot of people ask, and this is how I know, like, all right, so you don't have a real class analysis when they say, well, if the immigrants that come over here, if their country is so good, why are they coming over here, right?
right. Yeah, yeah,
Like, but you don't understand what the West has done to
yeah,
the global South and where they come from, and the clues that the West might be responsible for the economic destabilization, the over extraction of their resources. Like
yeah,
they're coming over here to live the same way, you know what I mean? Anybody
yeah.
else would, right?
And more than anything, they're not just coming over here to live on their own individual terms. They're coming over here to live,
Mhm.
but within the global capitalist system, they're coming over here because they're being shepherded here by capital.
Yeah,
Like
right, right,
the capitalists do the things they do, knowing full well that when they go and bomb Chile, Chileans are going to come to America.
right,
You feel me?
right, right.
They know when they produce enough CO2 to kill the entire Earth, that the first places that are going to suffer is the global South, and those people in the global South are going to come here. Why is that important? Because when they come here, they become added to the labor force. And
Hmm.
a lot of those people come here, especially illegal immigrants, they're afraid that they're going to be sent back because they know that going back is death.
Mm.
So you can convince them to work for 250 on an hour on a construction site. You can convince them to, you know, do hand in hand labor in the packaging plant for $25 an hour less than what the union workers get.
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
all a form of union busting and subverting labor, and
Hmm.
and that's what even slavery itself. Like you look at the history of slavery, as black people, like we focus on how it affected us. But and this is something that not even white people do, and it's frustrating because the people who are actually making the analysis of how slavery affected white people aren't white people. It's
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
insane.
yeah.
But like but like slavery undermined the wages of white people in America to the point where white people were ready to revolt, not against slavery, but just generally. Like,
Hmm.
this shit doesn't make sense to me. Why aren't we getting paid? They didn't have the capacity, I think, to challenge that it was slavery, even though some did. There was the Jayhawks and John Brown and all those people. But, like, there was a tipping point, and that tipping, this is, history goes in cycles.
Yeah.
We're getting to those tipping points again where it's like, okay, I can't afford to eat. And it's because they're bringing in slavery. People are identifying that. People are identifying that as a problem, but they're not understanding why that problem exists. So they blame the immigrant instead of the system itself. And again, this is why the Marxist critique is important.
Indeed, indeed. what is your response to white leftists who criticize black leftists for addressing issues specific to black people, labeling it as identity politics?
I mean, so I think that there are people who genuinely think that, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
But that's like also a part of the problem, right? Um, like there's a misunderstanding of what liberal identity politics is and how we define identity itself, right? Where like black people in America do have a different relationship to production than white people do, even white working poor. Because we were specifically born here to be a slave class, our material conditions throughout history, right, develop in a different way, develop down a different path in the same way that the proletarians and the peasants develop in a different path. So I think to an extent, like while there's genuine critique or not genuine critique, because the critique isn't correct, but while I think that there are people who believe it's a correct critique, I also feel as though it's chauvinistic, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's an attempt at justifying what liberalism is left within them,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Where they can't see beyond their own material conditions. Everybody wants to be the most oppressed. It's the oppression Olympics, even within the month,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
So so you get these critiques that that do not accept even Lenin's own writings, right? Where Lenin talked about America being a nation of oppressed nations and how people of different nations within a colonized project can't form unions if one group doesn't have agency over itself.
Right.
Right now, black people in America, we have individual agency, but as a community, we are at the whims of capital of white capital, right?
Facts. Hmm.
So it's short sighted. It's a
Hmm.
short sighted critique. Um, I think that black nationalism, while there's opportunists within the movement who do all types of damage, I think that there's black nationalism is something that not only black leftists should support, but white leftists as well, if we want to see the results that we want to see. Because whether they like it or not, right?
Hmm.
Whether they like it or not, black people want to organize.
Right.
Black people want change. I had this conversation a
And
couple
have
of
a
days ago.
history, a long history of
Long
organizing, right?
history.
You
And I
know?
think that I think the frustration, part of the reason why it's harder to get black people involved in Marxism is because of this idea from white people. Because black people, we want militancy, right?
Hmm.
We want
Hmm.
militancy. We want to see we want to see organizations that are saying, yo, there are acts of violence going on against black people. So black people should be able to form their own self-defense
Yeah. Yeah.
and to stand with us in that, right?
Hmm.
People look at the Black Panther Party and they see Black Fists, but like there was plenty of white people in the Black Panther Party,
Right.
right? You need like there's white people who understand it, and there's a
Hmm.
lot who don't, but the ones
Right.
who don't are holding the movement back on a greater scale because now I got to go out to the community and talk to people about Marxism, and they go, well, those white leftists told me you wrong. Now I got to break that down for
Yeah.
20 minutes
Yeah.
to talk about like how we can mobilize.
Yeah.
So you know.
No, yeah, I agree, 100%, man. You know, it's just our story and our as far as how we got here, the reason we got here, and what has happened to us since we've been here. It's unique, and you can't just paint that, like, hey, it's all about working class solidarity, all about working class solidarity. We have some specific issues
Yeah,
that we got, you know what I'm saying,
yeah,
and we are going to address,
yeah.
and but yeah, I agree 100%, man. Last week was Dr. King's birthday. Monday, I believe, was it what's the day? I can't remember. Yeah, Monday was the holiday, I believe. Yeah, and so, as like clockwork, FBI
Hmm.
tweeting, um, you know, how their ideals align with the legacy of Dr. King. Like it's so crazy. Like this American myth making shit is insane. Like whenever you just take a step back and look at it. But what are your thoughts on this rebranding of Dr. King? Stripping away any socialist beliefs or capitalist critiques he has. Like I have where is the book somewhere over here? I don't have my books up here yet because I need to anchor that. But there's the Dr. King, Prophet of Discontent. Dr. King's critique on racial capitalism, and we see all of these quotes. Not just even if we haven't read the books, we see all of these quotes where Dr. King has talked about we coming to get our check or redistributing the wealth, and
Mhm.
the organizing he did with labor, like this stuff is never talked about in
Oh,
mainstream Dr. King discourse. It's boiled down to excerpts from the "I Have a Dream" speech,
we shall
right?
overcome, and
Yeah, yeah. But like, what are your thoughts on what they've kind of done, or at least well, they have what they've done with Dr. King's legacy?
it's a, it's one of those things, right, where as a black person who grew up in predominantly black neighborhoods, right, um, who I want to say that like my mom was like a radical because she wasn't, but she just like instilled the like understanding of me that like there's something going on out there.
Yeah.
Um, it's frustrating for
Hmm.
starters. Like it's frustrating, right? Like I talk about it on Twitter. I talk about it on Twitter. I talk about it in real life. I struggle, me personally. I have a hard time dealing with the ways that black people are mocked
Mm.
in the society, or
Hmm.
there's
Hmm.
a level of like slaps to the face, right?
Man,
There's like
just
it's
the
like
FBI tweeting that shit is just
yeah,
like
the
a
FBI
huge
tweeting.
slap in the face,
I went
right?
to election day. I went over to Happy Hollow to vote, and they got posters out in front of the polling place with Martin Luther King and Kamala Harris on the joint, and I'm like, it's all hard to process sometimes.
Yeah.
I think on a material level, like this is all a part of the plan, right?
Mm, hmm,
All part of the
hmm.
plan. They can't have black people believing in hope and change, which was a lot of what Dr. King talked about, and also understanding that hope and change can't come within capitalism, right?
Yeah. Right.
They
Right.
can't afford that. They can't
Hmm,
afford for black people to be radical.
hmm, hmm.
And and seeing the way that he's been co-opted, specifically by the Democratic Party, even though like you see some of it from Republicans as well. It kind of puts the writing on the wall for anybody who is like who understands the shit a little bit better than the average,
Hmm, hmm, hmm.
where it's obvious that the Democrats are resting on the laurels of the civil rights movement,
Oh
right?
yeah. Yeah.
Where they know that like if you talk about Martin Luther King and you talk about the right to vote, that
Hmm,
gets an emotional response out of people because people know that King fought for the right to vote. They know
hmm,
like that reform was part of his agenda, right? And they use these buzzwords to capture us. And that's what it's all about. It's all about capture. Or outside of the black context to shame white people into going, damn, I can't go against the Democrats. That's the party of Martin Luther King. That's
yeah.
like
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it just feels like I'm I grew up an athlete and I'm a chess player and I love a good strategy game and all that. And it just feels like a level of like gamesmanship.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like obviously that's what it is. That's
Yeah.
to a degree that's what it is. Like they're playing us. And it it gives me these are the type of things that people need to wake up to,
Hmm,
right?
hmm.
That like these people do not respect you. They
Right.
don't. It doesn't matter how many nice things they plan to give you. It doesn't matter what intersections you cross. You feel me? Like I got plenty of queer friends, and they see the Democrats out here rallying for queer people, but then when it's time to like put some food on queer people's plate, there's no food to be had.
Right.
Or environmentalist friends who see Democrats talking about clean energy, but then when it's time to like actually put in work towards clean energy, there's nothing.
Right.
And this is how they do us.
Hmm.
They love to dangle the carrot on the stick. They love to
Hmm.
get you to come out and go, this is touching, this is speaking to my spirit. But there's no reward at the end of that.
Right.
There's no
Shit's
reward.
just it's so empty. It's like really what are the people getting if voting for I mean with either side of this duopoly, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
it gets and it gets so because I see a lot of older people say and you may get some concessions with the Democratic Party, right?
right.
And I can't even say that you may that you won't. At the end of the day, both of them represent empire, genocide, and they're like remember whenever um Trump and Kamala Harris were doing their debates, right? And those debates are pointless, but they talk about all of this frivolous stuff and they're going back and forth, throwing shots at each other. But like whenever they were talking about Palestine, it was like really short because they
Yeah,
both agree
they
on
had
that
nothing.
shit.
Yeah, they had nothing to offer that was going
Yeah,
and for all their bases. Like,
right.
and that's what a lot of the discourse around King comes down to. They
Mhm.
use like empty language about like freedom and liberty. They tie him to liberalism, which I mean, to a
Yeah.
degree, he was a liberal, but like
Hmm.
they tie him to liberalism in a way that's not genuine to his actual positions. Right?
Yeah.
He was more of a Frederick Douglass liberal than he was, you know,
Right.
and they do that because they know that like we people do want freedom.
Hmm.
People do want liberty, but
Hmm.
there's no pathway to that through what they're offering. it's
No.
just the it's just the so that they don't have to talk about actual policy. They talk about Martin Luther King, or they talk about the civil rights movement and civil rights act. And like I said, it's infuriating. Like
Yeah.
that's the only real words I could put to it, because it shows how meaningless they see all of us, right?
Hmm.
Somebody like Dr. King could be commodified and turned into
Hmm.
just another means of, selling a product to the masses. Then like any of us could be that. They
Yeah.
fucking made a fucking. I still haven't watched this movie. I don't even really know what the movie is about, but they fucking made a fucking Fred Hampton movie,
Oh yeah, I can't watch it. I
and I'm
can't.
like,
I
what?
can't. Yeah, yeah,
Like, how did y'all even
yeah,
have the fucking goal to even do that?
yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
so like I can't really put into words like how uncomfortable it makes me feel, and that's really what it really comes down to.
Hmm.
I think
Hmm.
that I think that again, this is why like the theory and the critique is necessary, because these are people around the world who saw the same things that we see
Hmm.
in different places, and the
Yeah,
common denominator is capitalism, right?
yeah. Hmm.
And Lenin talked about this. Lenin, Rosa Luxemburg talked about reformism, right?
Hmm.
And you get those older black people who say, like, at least they'll give us something. They'll make some concessions. Incremental change is better than nothing. But Lenin talked about how bourgeois parties' entire MO is to give a little to take a lot.
Right,
No,
right, right.
their entire goal is to give you these carrots so that when it's time for you to resist, you can't. The
Hmm.
biggest reason why reformism exists is to disorganize workers. If you believe that you could put your trust in these bourgeois parties, then you're not going to organize amongst the masses, because the
Hmm.
party's already organized for you.
Right,
They're going to run the lines for you.
right.
At least you believe so, until
Okay.
election day comes, and then
Yeah, you
fuck
just,
off.
I mean, because no, you're right. Like, imagine if people had the same vigor for, organizing, uh, that they have for being a part of the Democratic Party or a part of the Republican Party. Like it's like, bro, it's like a religion to some. Like, and we can see, especially with these MAGA people,
Yeah, yeah,
like that shit is real cult
yeah. It's a
like. You know what
religion.
I'm
Yeah, it's a
saying?
cult.
Yeah.
I brought this up a couple of days ago on Twitter that like liberals have this idea that we've hit this enlightened society. This is the end of history because we're starting to see the end of religion, right? Or not the end of religion because that's not really like a meaningful statement,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah. I got
we're
you.
starting to see like people divest from Christianity more,
Yeah, it's like
more,
more of a secular
yeah,
society. Yeah.
yeah, more of a secular society. And the way I feel about it is that all of that is meaningless. It doesn't matter if people are divesting from Christianity because and we see this in the black community too, with like a lot of the spiritual esoteric people, they leave Christianity and take Christianity with them wherever they go, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you
Mm-hmm.
get within the community, you get like these like people who claim to be Pan Africans, but they still praying to God every night. They still got their ties to the church. And you see the same thing within like the general society of like people who are separated from the church, but they believe in liberalism in such a way that it is divine, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That like the ideas of liberalism are divine rights.
Mm-hmm.
That like freedom to have property, to have private property is like something sent down from God. But like you said that you weren't a Christian, so why are we
Right.
why,
Right.
why are we talking about what God sent down to us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like so like all of that is meaningless. You get liberalism as the new religion. You get Trump as a prophet. You get
Yeah.
Kamala Harris as a savior. Like,
Mm-hmm.
but none of that stuff has any material basis in the same way that I have to put things on the table 100%. I'm an agnostic. I have some level of spiritual beliefs, but not, a ton. But the same way that we see people that put down the religion and can't see beyond the idealism, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We're seeing the same thing in politics. People can't see beyond liberalism. There's no world beyond liberalism, right? There's
Right.
no there's no what comes next. Communism was they were told that communism is evil. They were told that
Mm-hmm.
socialism is evil. If you're a socialist, Stalin's going to come eat your children and all that shit. So they're not trying to be socialist. So you get into this cognitive dissonance space where like the reality doesn't make sense to you. You can't afford to eat, but you go to work and you work hard every day. You feel me? You go
Mm-hmm.
to work and you work hard every day. You come home and your fridge empty.
Yeah.
That shit don't
Yeah.
make no sense to you.
Right.
But the parties is telling you, you just gotta believe. If we just keep reforming the parties, if we keep reforming the government, one day you'll have some food in your fridge. But it's like I'm starving now. Like I don't have one day. I don't
Mm-hmm.
like
Facts.
no, I don't have 20 years to wait for incremental change. I
Mm-hmm.
need it now. And then now we're seeing in real time, right? Where it's been 60, 70 years since the Civil Rights Act. And you're seeing, even though we've always been seeing this, I think that a lot of people just weren't paying attention enough to notice. But we're seeing now Trump completely ripping out
Oh
the
yeah.
the Civil Rights Act and all of the things that came with it. And you think about it as like, these institutions 100 years ago, that's not a long time ago.
Nah.
Right? In
My
America,
grandmother's 94.
yeah, like my great grandmother was alive for both world wars
Damn.
and the Civil War.
Right, right, right. That's crazy,
like
right? Like,
like this
but
is
that's,
crazy. Like
but yeah, yeah. Now
so
that just
like
goes to put it in context. I don't mean to cut you off, but
oh you lit.
black people, we often do that. Like,
Yeah,
whenever we
yeah.
wanted to show how slavery was yesterday, how the civil rights
It
movement
was,
was yesterday,
that should just
like,
happen.
yeah.
That should just
Yeah.
happen. And doing that is harmful to our understanding of what's going on out here.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because people today are looking at Trump pulling out the Civil Rights Act as like, damn, that's crazy. We've been for so long. Look at our history. They destroying our history. When like in reality, he's taking out a piece a small moment, right, in the history of humanity, right?
Hmm.
It's that easy for them.
Yeah.
It's never,
Yeah.
and to think about how hard we fought, niggas died, blood
Facts.
spilled,
Hmm.
houses bombed. People
Hmm.
had to, they weren't safe in their own homes. People were getting protests coming to their homes because they wanted black people to have housing access, right?
Yep. Yep.
People die for that. And to see these things be stripped away with just a stroke of a pen, all that does is validate the idea that all of these reforms are hollow. We don't need reforms. We need revolution. It has to happen. There's
Right.
no other way.
What's funny is, like, with the with the Civil Rights Act, Roe v. Wade. Like, why wasn't this shit codified in the
None
first
of us
place?
codified.
With yeah,
Like
why
it,
not?
it, it comes off to like I like and I realize getting older, I'm 32 now, and like getting older, I realize that like a lot of the ways I think about the world aren't the norm. But like, my mom grew up with Freeway in them when it was Ice City and all that.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
dope, dope.
so like, like Freeway and them used to come to the crib and I see
Mhm.
niggas. So like I've never been like all struck by celebrities and politicians and all that shit because I
Yeah,
saw them.
right.
And and I don't think people have that view of the political world, right? They don't have a view of the political world as like these just regular people, right?
Mhm.
They
Right,
look at them
right.
as like
Mm.
these like high up entities and ivory towers that you can't reach. And how I feel about it always is that like when you look at them as regular people, would you let any nigga on the street treat you the way that they treat you?
Oh
Ain't,
no.
ain't no way.
Oh no.
Ain't no way that you gonna let somebody use your dead homie's name to
Yeah,
finesse you off some bread.
right, right, right.
And
Nah,
you're
you're
not
right.
sitting with that.
No,
But
no,
we do that all the
all the
time with
time.
politicians.
That's
And
a
like
fact.
that's so crazy to me. And that's the part, on social media,
It's like
more
we
than
just automatically concede to that power dynamic. Like
yeah,
whatever you
automatically.
say. Yeah.
Automatically. On social media, I try to like, keep it professional a little bit. But like when it really comes down to it, like I spent 18, 19, 20 some years in North Philly and I don't fuck with none of that. Like
Right.
I'm not letting I'm not seeing the shit that's going on and seeing it as like, oh, this is politics. Because the same way hood politics work, regular politics work. And
Hmm.
not to get your whole joint flagged and nothing like that. But sometimes you gotta up the 40 on niggas. That just gotta
Yes.
be what it is.
No, this is word.
Like that just gotta be
Like,
what it is, right?
right,
So
right.
so like I get the reform arguments and I get, we want peace and we want to hug it out. And I also get understanding like adventurism is not the way to go.
Hmm.
Like if we know that we gotta up to 40, we need to know how we need to up to 40 because it can't be do nothing or go die. It can't be
Right.
right.
Yeah.
If we're
Yeah.
gonna fight, we need to be fighting to win, and if we're gonna
Hmm.
fight to win, we need to know how.
Right. Right.
And Marxism
Right.
is that way to understand how.
Understood. And like also how we were talking about the international aspect of our struggle. Uh, from Dr. King, from Malcolm to the Panthers, Walter Rodney, they all had this analysis of, hey, this is a global struggle, right?
Mhm.
And I saw something interesting online. Like as soon as you get on Twitter, the first damn thing you see is something that Elon tweeted because he just
Yeah,
he
always.
just flooded the block, right? Like, and he was I noticed him promoting a slogan that was similar to MAGA, and it was mega make Europe great again. And he's been accused of interfering in European politics lately,
Yeah,
and so I don't know if you saw that or not, but just two things. Like, what did you think about just his, like, what do you think his end goal is with this shit? Because it really feels like this motherfucker is trying to be like the Sith Lord, man. Like
yeah,
he
yeah. Yeah,
he wants the whole planet, but
yeah,
outside of that though, why is it crucial again for us to see these things in an international lens? Because clearly they do.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, and that's kind of the starting point, right? That
Right.
like if your enemy is fighting on the international stage, then like that's where you need to be fighting at.
Hmm.
Right?
Hmm.
But like also like looking at Elon, I think that there's a lot of things that people one like people don't know who Elon is really, right? Like people see him as like the Twitter guy, the Tesla guy.
Hmm.
They don't really see him like for the person he is.
Yeah.
And same way with Trump and a lot of these politicians. But when you look at what Elon's doing, what is he doing actually? So he's in the UK stoking white nationalist movements. He's in the UK stoking white nationalist movements in a way that is very obvious, right? Very obviously about making some of these places ethno states.
Hmm.
He supports the ethno state.
Oh, absolutely.
So you have to start like asking why, where is this in his history? You look at his history, he's from apartheid South Africa.
Facts.
So,
Facts.
so of course, a fucking Boer is a white nationalist, bro. Like it shouldn't even
Right.
be a question. So now you gotta
Right.
start asking, why the fuck does a white nationalist have so much power in American politics? Has so
Hmm.
much power. We just had a coup attempt in Venezuela,
Hmm.
right? Now
Hmm.
I can't say for sure if
Hmm.
Elon had anything to do with that, but I know that Elon said we will coup Venezuela.
Yeah.
So,
Hmm. Real
so
talk, right? Like it's
it's
so
like
it's so crazy.
yeah,
But go ahead.
it's insane. So like we have to start looking at the world as one society.
Hmm.
We're one society, right? We're a
Hmm.
group of people.
Hmm.
And Engels talked about this, right? Where Europe is the colonized nation, right? Europeans were different tribes across Europe and were systematically brought into hegemony,
Yeah.
right? And then after they ran out of space, they captured all the Europeans. They said, "Damn, well, we need more resources. We need more labor. You know, Europe ain't really got too much of it in metals and you know. So where we go from here? Oh, we go to India. We go to Africa. All
Hmm.
right, cool. They capture India and Africa. What happens? Then we need to expand. Now they don't got nowhere to expand. So World War I break out.
Right.
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 So
Right.
like all of this shit has always been about how much land they could capture and how they could prevent other states, other national identities from seizing control of the bigger whole, right?
Right. Right.
All of that at the expense of the working class people,
Hmm.
right? So Elon is out here trying to he's working with the government at the same time that the government is trying to, overthrow China, new Red Scare, or really the old Red Scare, but
Yeah.
shit. Um, he's meddling in Africa, meddling in Germany, because he knows that the people in those parties who are going to get power will give him access.
Yes.
And that's what it's all about. It's all about access. And it's not even just Elon. You see, a couple of years ago, fucking Jeff Bezos tried to buy Cyprus, the entire island, the entire nation of Cyprus. He just like just tried to buy it outright. So it's like these people see the land, the nations of the world as commodities themselves, as pieces of property to buy, and that includes like the people.
Mm.
These are all one company. You get hoteps and conspiracy nerds who are like, oh yeah, America's a corporation, but like they don't understand how correct they actually are. And
Mm.
like any corporation, you take down a corporation the same way, right?
Mm.
As soon as labor stops, the whole thing falls on his neck.
Falls on his neck.
We the ones
Yeah.
that put the foundation up.
Right.
But if the corporation is international, it don't matter if you working at Amazon and the fucking janitors go on strike.
Mm.
It don't matter because there's
Mm.
still a bunch of other motherfuckers that will make the motherfuckers who pack in the bags go clean up the shit.
Yeah.
Right? So if we could work collectively with all of the workers of the globe to
Yeah.
shut shit down, then we will find liberation. But it's
Right.
we gotta
Nah,
be
that's that's a great breakdown. That's a perfect analogy as well. Yeah, I need y'all to really understand that, like, especially when you start thinking it's okay to just see yourself um, by yourself instead of having and and not seeing yourself as a part of this global family. Because man, individuals don't beat institutions, man. Like we need all hands on deck. These motherfuckers are. They be like, why you Pan African? Like these motherfuckers is Pan European. Like you
Yeah,
know what I'm
that's
saying?
yeah. They there is no amongst the ruling class at least. There's no real nationalist movement amongst the ruling class. They don't
No,
give a fuck about America. This shit is
hell no.
all this shit is all motherfucking cake and ice cream to these niggas. Like they know that like fucking them, the niggas in Belgium, the niggas in Germany, we all got the same interests. We all
Hmm.
to make sure that we could get the most out of our dollars. How can we do it? It's a cartel. It's a
Yeah,
global cartel.
yeah,
So the resistance against that cartel has to be global.
yeah.
So they're
Facts.
fighting.
Yeah,
They're
for
not
a lot
fighting
of
against the
the
niggas, of
for a
course.
lot of
So
the ruling class, there ain't no nation states. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
exactly,
Like,
exactly. And tearing that down takes a process that you have to understand, and that's where I think that so many of like the nativists and other people lose me is that like regardless of how we feel about Marx or Lenin or Stalin or Mao, Stalin could have killed 8 billion people. I would have still been a Marxist, right? Like, like it has nothing to do with Stalin, right?
right.
So like but you do have to understand that like there are people who saw the issue and then acted against the issue. How did they do it? How
Mm,
did they do it here? What
hmm.
worked, what didn't? How did they do it here? What worked, what didn't? We got examples of the worst ways to do it. We
Yeah,
got fucking what's his name? Ariescu in Armenia or in Romania. Or like or Pol Pot, who I always got
yeah,
calling the communists, but
yeah.
like we have examples of like how really not to do it. We have
Hmm.
examples of how to really do it, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Marx's work was built a lot on watching the Paris Commune play out in real time.
Hmm.
For me, like so we can't isolate ourselves. We do that a
Yeah.
lot. We
Hmm.
isolate ourselves, and it gets us lost in the minutia. Now we're fighting fucking immigrants. This shit
Yeah.
makes me so frustrated because like,
Yeah, me too,
yeah,
man. Like, damn, like this ain't the enemy, man.
yeah,
Like,
like everybody, you want to fight immigrants, you want to fight the transgenders, you want to fight me. Like, bro, I don't got time for this. For real, for real. Like, I got mad immigrant homies, like I got mad transgender homies. I don't have time to be like out here trying to protect them from you when I'm not the enemy, you not the enemy, they not the enemy. What are we doing?
right.
Shit not changing nothing for nobody. I had a conversation with a nigga the other day, and I'm like, damn, like y'all FBAs and all that, y'all keep talking about how Marxists is just yapping, even though they're like the civil rights movement and the Black Power movement was predominantly communist, right? Predominantly socialist and Marxist and the Communist Party and all types of shit. Paul Robeson was out in the USSR. You feel me? Like this shit,
Yeah. Yeah.
like, and so like we got material results. And it's like,
Hmm.
damn, all right, so they took the Black Panthers out in the 80s and then gave y'all niggas Thomas Sowell and Boyce White.
Nah, that nigga's one of the worst. Man.
and and what have that movement done since? What have they
Right.
done besides sell books? And there's no answer to that question. There's
Right.
nothing changed. I've never seen a Freeman movement produce anything other than, and I don't want to get too much in the weeds because I know these niggas
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
they,
yeah,
they,
yeah.
they like to swarm and all that. But like all I
Yeah.
see is niggas trying to sell me houses and shit. So I don't, financial
Yeah.
crips and all
Yeah.
that. I'm not really,
Real talk.
I'm not really too hip on that.
Um, so recently, one of the things yesterday,
Yeah,
Sexy Red had posted the AI generated, picture of her and Dr. King. She didn't make it herself, but she had posted it. And, Bernie King asked her to take it down. And Sexy Red, she did, and she responded respectfully. I'll give her that. She apologized. But her fans started kind of going left on
yeah.
Bernie's King, Azalea Banks. I just want to pull up Azalea Banks's tweet real quick because this was some of the craziest shit. I was like, how
I,
could you
I
even
mean,
like how could you even say
Azalea a
that?
little, she throwing a little bit. So I don't even. I take everything she said with a grain of salt anyway.
Yeah, 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 real talk. 'Cause so and then Carlos Miller, he was kind of it wasn't like it's just like crazy malicious, but it could have been seen as antagonizing
Yeah.
Bernice King as well. But like, what are, what are your thoughts when you see shit like that, and like the larger implications of how we engage and respect our historical figures? Because like I people think, whenever you read all these books and you study revolutionary theory and you build with the people that you just this serious person. Now we laugh and joke all the time. You know what I'm saying? Like,
You fucking
eh,
clown.
right? You know what I'm saying? Humans are humans, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's just certain shit. I personally just I probably wouldn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's just
Yeah.
I
I
I,
think
I just I
I think that there's a it's an interesting conversation. Like it's a nuanced conversation, right?
yeah.
Because if it wasn't Sexy Red, if it
Hmm.
wasn't somebody who like I know is like them people is who line her pockets.
Yeah.
Like I don't really like to do the whole industry plant conversations or like the because I music is one of my things. I don't really talk about it much on social media, but music was one of my things. But like FD Signifier did a video recently about Diddy and Drake and the
Yeah, I
book,
saw.
and
Hmm.
he talked about how like everybody is an industry plant. Everybody in the industry. If you in the industry, you an industry plant. And
Right.
I share that view,
Hmm.
including Azalea Banks and Carlos Miller. But
Hmm. Hmm.
you get these conversations in those spaces amongst my friends. I've posted pictures of Dr. King with gold teeth and
Yeah. I think
like I
I ain't
posted
gonna
shit like
lie.
that.
I think I probably have back in the day.
Yeah, like that's my nigga for me. So we go.
Yeah, yeah,
But like seeing that coming from somebody who's in the industry, it feels disrespectful because we know that that wasn't necessarily just her, right?
yeah,
There's
yeah.
somebody else there, right?
Right,
There's her record label ain't gonna let her post nothing
right,
without
right.
without having somebody double check it. Yo, is
Mhm.
this cool? Yeah, all right. I would say that she probably didn't even post it herself. She probably got somebody on her team who handled it,
Facts. Yeah,
right?
facts.
Um, but like that goes back to like the commodification of revolutionary figures, right? Where it's like I talked about this before, but like you see revolution, and it's not just in black music. It's in media generally. I think that
Hmm.
we talk about it less because we talk about it outside of the black context less because it's less in your face.
Hmm.
But generally, American media has this obsession with critiquing capitalism
Hmm.
in a way that is disingenuous as hell.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Right, you
yeah.
get your Black Panther film with Killmonger, and it's like this nigga right as hell, but then he killing random and all that shit. So like you get shit like that,
Hmm.
and you get that in the music industry through like the cell of revolutionary figures, and it's like, what does Martin Luther King have to do with Sexy Red? Mind
Right,
you,
right,
mind you.
right, right.
Mind you, you feel me? I love me some big sexy, you feel me?
Yeah.
I could blast some, whatever. But Sexy Red ain't got nothing to do with Martin Luther King. She not talking about revolution. She not talking about anti-capitalism in her music. Like
Right.
I probably like if Kendrick Lamar posted that, and I got mad critiques for Kendrick Lamar, but
Hmm.
if Kendrick Lamar posted that, wouldn't nobody say nothing. It
Right.
wouldn't have been a conversation. Bernice wouldn't have said nothing. Everybody would have been fine.
So you think it's kind of like people it's kind of part of it is what people feel like
The
sexy red
connotation.
may represent. Yeah, the
Yeah, the
connotations of it.
connotation. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's Sexy Red is because it's hot as shit in here now. But Sexy Red is Sexy Red is associated with a lot of things that I understand Bernice not
Hmm.
wanting to be associated with, not wanting her family being associated with, especially being older black Southern family. Makes
Hmm.
sense, right?
Yeah.
Um, for the revolutionary standpoint. as somebody who knows that the FBI killed their father, like, why are y'all doing that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but like also, there's not really a difference.
Mhm.
There's not really a difference.
Mhm.
Like if Kendrick goes out here and talks about, you know, Martin Luther King all the time. He mentions King all the time. You know,
Mhm.
Beyonce, you know, I love me B, but Beyonce got mad music videos and entire album about being pro-black. And like all of it has the same vibe. All of it is just like, how can we get y'all niggas to know
Mhm.
we black too? So come spend some money over here.
Yeah, yeah,
And that's
yeah, yeah,
and that's
yeah.
and that's real crazy to me. That's real crazy to me because like none of these niggas. I mean, I guess like Kendrick and Beyonce do stuff, I guess, but like they're not really putting back into the community too crazy, right? Not to a level. I remember I used to harass what's his name, Finn Jones.
Mhm. Who is that?
He's the actor. I don't think his last name is Jones. I don't remember what his last name.
Mhm.
That's not his name actually.
Mhm.
His
Yeah.
name in Star Wars is Finn.
Oh yeah,
But
oh,
that nigga.
niggas, oh yeah, niggas will call you by your character.
Yeah, yeah. but
I saw
but
what's my hold on, not to cut you off, what's my man's name? And there was Martin Martin, not Tommy, but Cole.
oh yeah, cool. Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
saw Cole at the club
yeah.
one time and called him Cole. Man, he was mad as a mug, boy.
Yeah, all the time, bro. That's your name, bro. I don't, like, ain't nothing I can
Yeah.
do about it. But yeah, like I used to harass that nigga about like he used to talk all the time about like Black Power and shit on Twitter, and I'm like, bro, you got the bread. Go drop off a crate in the hood real quick. Go, like go, you know, the hood need arms, bro. Like you
Yeah.
let's make sure the hood is put together. But they're not for that. So like
Mhm.
I definitely get the critique. I get the like, yo, why is you doing that? But then
Mhm.
it goes to the other side where it's like other celebrities and fan bases coming at Bernice. That's also where like both sides are weird.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like when you see like one on the from the celebrity aspect, all of that shit is calculated. I'm not gonna say I don't like Azalea Banks, but like she do stuff for attention. She
Mhm.
like the female Kanye. So
Yeah. 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 Real talk.
so so like and it's like all of it is a clout chase.
Mhm.
So if we gotta disrespect Bernice King, disrespect because if you disrespecting, it don't really matter, you know, where you from on principle. If you disrespect somebody's daughter, you disrespect them, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
And it's like you gonna disrespect Bernice, and we supposed to think that you give a fuck about MLK? Like
Yeah.
we
Right. Right.
supposed to think
Right.
you care about you know Black Power and Black liberation, like so like I on from that aspect I don't really get it.
Mhm.
On the fan aspect, is the fans I understand because fans have this weird interpersonal relationship. It's not really interpersonal because they don't know these niggas, but that is real like personal relationship with this with these people. What's the word for it? Psychosocial.
Mhm.
With these people who like they don't know in real life, but they represent something to them, right? They
Mhm.
represent something to them, something about themselves. You know, a lot of sexy red friends, fans are you know rebellious type. They fighting against real shit in reality, even though I don't think sexy red is, but you
Mhm.
know them themselves, you know, have like real critiques of the system, some of them, and they, I guess, I would assume, see it as like somebody like question their freedom, you
Yeah.
know, question the sexy red freedom to do something. But
Mhm.
like it's still weird because like I don't think any of the people involved are actually thinking about what Dr. King
Yeah.
he stood
That's what
for.
gets lost in all of it, right?
Yeah,
Like.
like none of them give a fuck about black liberation, and it's like
Mhm.
okay, and not to drag this point on because it's a lot. It's so many layers to it. I also think that there is a level of like we don't take nothing serious.
Yeah.
we, don't,
Yeah.
we don't take nothing serious, and like I get it because like I'm a you know I got my jokes and all that. I make some funny shit all the time for me, but like to a certain extent, like there's certain stuff that is just like okay, like now we doing a little too much.
Mhm.
Now we crossing the line. I do think while I do think that like we're in this absurdist space within society right now, and we can go into like how alienation ties into that. But we're in this absurdist space right now, and so we mock things
Mm.
to feel good about a society that doesn't feel good to exist in.
Yeah.
But at some point, we have to understand that, like, if we're mocking it, we don't have time to sit and analyze,
Hmm.
and we should be able to sit and analyze Dr. King.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what it comes down to. Like I get that it's funny, but like we need to be actually going back and listening to Dr. King. Niggas is not being taught. Fucking Kwame Ture did that speech a couple years ago. I think it was UCLA, where he talked about how everybody loves Dr. King. He goes out and he meets people and they tell him, "Oh my God, you know Dr. King is such a great man. I love Dr. King." And then he asks them like, "Okay, so what's your favorite Dr. King speech? What's your favorite quote?" And they ain't got nothing to say.
Mm.
It's like,
Mm.
damn, like
Mm.
y'all love Dr. King, but y'all ain't never read Dr. King.
Right.
Like,
Right, right.
what is going on? But can't do too much with it.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Um, Philly's Black Marxist, man. This has been a dope conversation,
Absolutely.
a great build. I appreciate you for coming on
Yeah.
and just having this conversation. I think the people will definitely enjoy it and appreciate it.
Yeah.
Again, man, if people want to find you on social media, how can they find you and you know?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter, obviously, Philly's Black Marxist, forever underscore noir underscore. I got two Twitters, so I don't remember which one is the
Mhm.
the right one. But and I'm the same thing on Instagram, forever noir, forever underscore noir 215 on Instagram. I'm also shameless plug, but I'm also on Netflix on Queer Eye season 5. They did a whole spotlight thing on me. You can also, so I'm going to plug this organization, but I'm not as closely involved as I used to be,
Mhm.
or for ideological reasons. Not in a bad way, but sometimes niggas just don't have the same ideas.
Yeah.
But also, you can check out the Block Gives Back. That
Mhm.
is the nonprofit me and my friends started. Um, Working to bring communities together, show communities how they could, self-actualize and make change in the communities through community projects. Um, so yeah, that's all the places you can find me. I'm also on Facebook. I ain't gonna tell you how to find me, but if you find
Yeah.
me, you find me. So I ain't
Yeah.
gonna.
Already, man.
Yeah, yeah,
Again, man, thank you for coming through. I look forward to having you back on sometime and chopping it up
yeah,
again, man. There's always new shit happening, and there's always the same liberation struggle that we need to
for
keep
sure.
pushing in front of the people's minds. So again, man, I appreciate you and everything that you do in Philly as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And because I know I should have said this earlier, but I'm going to plug some more things. So currently I'm doing uh a bit of a revamping on what type of activism work that I'm doing in the community. But a big part of my plan is bridging the gap between different socialist organizations. I'm
Mm,
multi-card. I'm a member of the Communist Party USA. I'm also a member of Black Alliance for Peace. I plan on joining the Socialist Rifle Association, which I also encourage a lot of people in the city to do, especially if you're black. Socialist Rifle Association, they do um, firearms training, as well as like medical triage in
mhm.
case of like shootings and things like that. And I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
we all need that, right?
Hell yeah.
I'm also planning on doing some work with DSA. I've done work with their International Solidarity group. Um, so yeah, join the org. Don't matter really. Like I'll say it don't matter who which org you join. Join at your own discernment, own discretion. But get involved. Make the community great again, or whatever they be saying.
Absolutely, and I think that's definitely a great idea as far as bridging the gap between different socialist organizations. You
Mhm.
gotta come back and let us know how that's going here
Yeah,
in the
absolutely,
future.
absolutely.
For sure, man. Well, again, man, thank you for your continued fight, and again, man, it's been a great conversation. I appreciate you for coming through.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, man.
Indeed, peace.